Welcome to the Exhausted Podcast. I'm Sam. This is my co-host Jace, and today we're going to be discussing commercial leasing, the do's and don'ts, mistakes we made on our first time out, and things that you should probably look out for.
I haven't had enough caffeine today, so I will do my best to keep up with what's going on. I seem to be struggling with basic concepts, as Sam has pointed out a lot throughout the start of getting ready for the podcast. But basically what we wanted to do was have a podcast where we went over commercial leasing, as we think, expect that it's gonna be one of the first things you're looking at if you're looking at opening a business that's brick and mortar, is looking, picking out a location. And so leasing and understanding what's going on with a commercial lease is gonna be huge. I would say we had a business plan written out before we started looking at places, but the business plan got edited for the location, because obviously it's going to change the traffic and the foot traffic and the exposure and our marketing approach and so on. So I'd say this is probably the first thing you're really doing, if we're being honest, with starting a business, is looking at locations and figuring out which one's a good fit for you, understanding some terms and stuff, and what's going on with the lease is going to be huge. Remember that couple asked us about, they were thinking about opening a dog park, that was an indoor dog park that was a bar attached to it.
Oh, yes.
In the same plaza. They came to us just kind of asking us some general questions, which was a good idea by them. But it was just it's kind of inspired this little podcast, this video, was sharing some stuff that people have no clue on if they're not in the commercial leasing world, if they're not a commercial realtor, already a business owner, or someone that owns a commercial property.
This is definitely a must-watch video if you want to avoid these 3 common mistakes that we are definitely guilty of.
That's right. We got 3 mistakes we're going over. 3, not 4, maybe 4, I don't know. But 3 mistakes we're going over that, if we're being honest with ourselves, we made those. Cut to a cool intro video, and we'll be right back. All right, first things first, some terms we're going to be going over. Sam's got the first term. This is stuff that I had never heard before we started looking at commercial leasing. So the first term that Sam was going to go over
is camp fees. So CAMP stands for Common Area Maintenance. These are fees paid by tenants to landlords to help cover costs associated with overhead and operating expenses for common areas. So these are usually tacked on with the rent that you're going to pay monthly.
Our example of camp fees, so we have a decent amount of parking lot space out here. So there's some landscaping work being done in the summer and fall and springtime, snow removal in the winter time. There's some lighting out there to keep the parking lot, safe and all that kind of stuff. So that's being covered in our camp fees.
Make sure you know what those are before signing the leases. Are big little note on this one. And then also check if the landlord charges extra for any special things like snow removal in the winter, which we have heard from other business owners that got them in trouble, especially during the winter months when you have snowstorms, especially if you're living in the Northeast.
Or whatever, I think every region of the country has their own little thing that happens. For us it's snow, other places, I don't know.
Yeah, so
sandstorms.
Especially if you're losing business already because of the snowstorms, that extra fee on top is gonna hurt the business.
What was the business that the lady owned? We had someone in here throwing axes one time who owned a business that closed down because in her lease, snow removal wasn't covered, or it was covered, but you had to pay the landlord X amount of dollars per snowplow pass.
If they came in extra, and that winter, of course, we had a big snowstorm.
So they were covered for like 10 snowplow visits a year. But every additional one is an extra X amount of dollars.
Right, I believe it was a bar, so nobody was coming in because of the snowstorm and that extra cost of the snow removal.
So there's a thing, you're going to see attached to these properties, you're going to see a price per square foot. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a general market in your area of what that price per square foot is, instead of just putting a monthly cost. I don't know why they do this, it's so stupid and confusing. But next to that, you're going to see a number of N's. So you're going to see a single N, a double N, or a triple N. So it's triple net, double net, or single net. So basically it's just extra money you're going to be paying to the landlord. So a triple net's gonna mean that what it's real estate taxes, building insurance, and maintenance, which would be like the camp fee, is tacked on to the rent. So there's gonna be additional to that price per square foot. So for some places, just to use even numbers and easy numbers, let's say price per square foot is 20, the space you're renting out is 100 square feet. It's not gonna, that's very small, don't rent out a 100 square foot spot unless, I don't know.
Unless you need it.
Unless that's really all you need to do your business, in which case get that. So at 20 times 100, that's gonna be 2,000 square feet. So I do $2,000 per year, that's gonna be $1 per year. Divide that by 12, figure out what your monthly rent is. That math might have been awful, I have no idea, don't have a calculator in front of me. But now on top of that, you're gonna have that triple net, double net, single net, whatever it is. And that's just, the different ends just mean how many things are being covered, what the landlord's taking care of. It's what they stand for doesn't really matter. I think double net is property taxes and property insurance instead of the maintenance fee. It doesn't matter what's on the end. But that number is going to be added to your fixed rent. So that price per square foot plus X amount of dollars for the triple net, double net, single net, CAM fees. It's usually going to be done up at least in a commercial shopping plaza, where you're going to get a percentage of how much space you take up of the whole place. You're going to pay a percentage. For us, I think we pay 1.71 or 3 a very small percentage, because we're one of the smaller businesses as far as square footage goes in the plaza. So that's going to be something on top of the rent though. So if you're only taking that price per square foot into account, you're not going to be getting the idea of what the total monthly cost is going to be to have the location that you have, which we're going to get into too. Budgeting and understanding these numbers are huge. So understanding and asking, is it a triple net, double net, single net, which one it is doesn't matter, but how much it's going to cost you does. So you're going to need to know what that dollar figure is going to be depending on which type of net it is, and just throwing out those words might make it seem like you know what you're talking about. Google's your friend too, and understanding what those CAM fees are, they're going to be huge to your budget. Now, one of the other terms / things we wanted to go over, landlord work. What do you want to say about landlord work, Sam?
Landlord work is tricky. So, a thing that we learned much too late in starting our commercial lease is that the landlord will do more work than you think they will.
Yeah, so my background from what made me think I knew a little bit about what I was talking about with leasing was I own a duplex, so I rent out a part of my property to somebody else, and that made me have this false inflated ego about understanding what it meant to rent the thing or to be a renter, or to the rented landlord. Anyways, rentor. So we didn't learn this until we met a gentleman that owns a few other businesses in the area. Was talking to me about a recent business he just opened up and how his landlord granted him, I think it was $160,000 worth of landlord work. We didn't know that was an option to just get. He had a budget. He had a dollar figure. This is how much work they're going to do. This is how much money I'm going to pay, and he got to choose how that money got spent, essentially. Now, I'm sure that the landlord, there are some stipulations. You can't take that money to the bar or to the casino and have fun, but you can use it for its space improvements, and I'm sure there's a little bit of hashing it out between the landlord and the rentee. We silence our phones.
Yeah. Alright, so first things first, the most important part about landlord work is get a budget. Make sure you know what the landlord's covering, how much they'll cover before you start.
Well, I mean, so what we did. We didn't have a budget. We had X amount of jobs that we wanted them to do. We wanted them to remove flooring and do a different floor, to raise the ceilings to make room for the axe throwing. We wanted them to build these axe throwing lanes. We wanted a door removed and a wall removed. And we had probably 7 different things we wanted done. If I was to equal all that up, and I'm just guessing, I have some basic contracting experience, but I'm not a contractor, not any of that stuff. But if I'm guessing, they probably spent in the range of $40,000 on this space. Now, we pay about the same in rent as a friend that we're talking about. They got $160,000 worth of work. I'm not saying we could have gotten 160, but we probably could have gotten 100, and we just didn't know that we could have asked for more. We thought we were getting a deal with the landlord doing the work. My brain thought that we got the space, first month's security deposit, we build all this stuff out. But no, the landlord will do a proverbial shish ton of work to make sure that you stay there for a long time. You gotta think with a residential lease, most you're expecting out of people is maybe 2 years, and that's a long lease. A year is pretty normal, 6 months isn't that crazy. The landlord's not gonna go do a bunch of work to keep you there for a year. 5 years though, and then with the prices that commercial leases go for, I mean that's a investment they're willing to make to keep you around for 5-10 years. They want your business to be just as successful as you want your business to be, because that's the only way they get paid. It's you selling donuts or Axe your own time or whatever it is that you're doing. So I mean, what in your mindset, do you think that's the way to go, the budget way, or doing actual jobs?
I guess it depends on the business too.
It really is
Yeah.
going to depend. But I mean, from my mindset, doing the budget and would make sense with some stipulations, but I'm a handy person that enjoys building things, and like the stuff that we built in here versus the landlord's team built in here, I'd say our stuff's a lot nicer. So I mean, there's that end of it too, where we could have had a little bit more control over what was being built and how the money was being spent. So I think it's going to depend on you and what you think is going to work, best for your situation. But there are options, and you're not getting a crazy good deal just because he said, it's because you didn't know better. Like that's what was our thing. We just didn't know better, so we thought this $40,000 worth of work was huge. Turns out the landlord was getting a pretty good deal, which isn't bad either. But
the thing also with the landlord work is make sure you have them list all the work that needs to be done that you guys planned out, because if you don't, they won't do it. If it's not written, if it's not signed, if there's no documentation or proof that was agreed upon, it will not be done. So make sure everything you agree upon is written down somewhere in an email, document, anything.
So with this, Sam is referring to the countertop that we didn't get installed. It was talked about in the meeting with them, so it's talked about. Well, let's walk them through how this meeting goes and how we get to the point of the landlord work. All right, so you're gonna go around, you're gonna pick out all the spaces that you like, right? You're gonna choose whichever one's the most fitting for what you're trying to do, and you're gonna eventually get to a realtor, likely a realtor. Maybe you go straight to the owner, but probably they're gonna have a realtor running things in a management group. They are going to show you the space. You're gonna say yes, you're gonna say no, but we've gotten to this point, we said yes, then likely you're gonna go meet with the landlord or again the management group and their contractor, who's going to look at outfitting the space for what it is that you want. In this meeting, this is where you need to either settle on the budget, where meeting the contractor is not the end of the world, but you're going to want their take on what it's going to cost, especially if the landlord says you have to use this contractor. It might give you free reign to use whatever contractor you want. Likely they're going to want their contractor working on it. And then you're going to list out these things. In this meeting, we said we wanted the countertop. They agreed to the countertop. We missed it in the paperwork that it wasn't written down. I don't think the contractor was trying to screw us.
Just forgotten.
Yeah, it fell through the cracks, and it wasn't a crazy issue for us.
Yes.
But it's something we could have definitely gotten. Now looking back, the coffee bar that we added here in August, we could have definitely had all that work done, installed, and ready to go. Again, we just didn't know better.
Exactly. Another thing too, with the work and getting it done, make sure all the work is done before you sign the lease. Because once you sign the lease, it's yours, it's done. The landlord,
You go.
Landlord isn't going to be as urgent with the tasks that need to be done because you've already signed, you're starting the rent. Doesn't care as much.
I mean, he cares. Well, it depends on your landlord.
But it's not as urgent.
Signing the lease. So once you sign the lease, that's when the landlord's going to start the work. So you do need to sign that lease before you finish the work. But there's something called a rent RCA, a rent commencement agreement, that you're not signing until the work is done. Now there's a thing too, and that at least in our lease, there was a thing where It discounts small jobs, so it's not including jobs that it's changing out a light bulb. With that too, though, I mean, make sure they change out that light bulb. Make sure, I mean, you have a lot of power in this situation, even though you're not going to feel like you have it, and you probably won't know better. But hold on to your first month's rent until they change that light bulb, until they fix that leaky ceiling, whatever it is. Make sure it's fixed before you open, because you only get one chance at the first impression you're going to make on people that come through the door. They do not care about how hard you tried and how hard you worked. They care how the place makes them feel, whether or not it's pretty. That's all they're going to care about. So don't sacrifice that first impression you get on your new potential customers, your returning customers, where the landlord not being able to finish his work. Like, don't sacrifice that. And I know you're going to be impatient, like we were, and you're not going to want to stop, or you're not going to want to wait for this thing to get fixed. Just do it. You're going to be okay waiting another 2 weeks. All right.
Next.
Is that it for landlord work?
I believe that's
that covers
it.
landlord work.
Yeah. All right. First mistake, not researching.
Now, some of this is going to tie directly into the landlord work, but you want to take the start on the research. Everybody says this, right? Research. How do you research it? So part of the research is going to come from what the landlord's team, again, is going to tell you. Ours told us how many cars pass through this plaza every day and how many cars pass through the road and the population within 2 miles and 5 miles and 10 miles. And it's a lot of good research, but none of it means anything. So what do we mean by research?
Research basically means, like Jay said, all those numbers are really just statistics.
Doesn't mean anything. Just because 20,000 cars drive by doesn't mean any of them care.
Exactly.
They don't.
So a thing that we did that actually was good was we went door to door, talked to other business owners in the plaza, see how they liked it here, stuff like that really. Something that we didn't do was research our contractor, research the team they're working with, make sure they did good work.
I kind of got lucky with the research end. So a gentleman I used to work with, his father owns a business in this plaza, so he was able to give us some info. The gym owners in the area was able to, there's a gym in the plaza, their general manager I became decent friends with. So just talking to the people around in the plaza and finding out the general feel of, like, okay, is this landlord good? Is this plaza feel good? Does it feel like it's on the up and coming? But then there's something, we had the connections, we just didn't think enough to ask these questions. But you want to run with this?
Yeah, so something we kind of discovered later on that was an issue was our plumbing. So turns out I knew the plumbing inspector of the city that we are located in, and after speaking with him and discussing everything with him, turns out that permits weren't pulled, some things weren't done. The contractors, the licensed plumbers that the landlord had weren't the most reliable in the field. And if we did that research earlier on, we probably could have found a different plumber or double checked the work before we signed it over.
Yeah, I mean, even that, we just would have known to make sure, check up on these little things and to check some of these things. So, like, what Sam's saying, though, is not just researching the plaza. When it comes to that landlord work is what we're talking about. Is I'd ask the question, and you're gonna know, like, there's gonna be an answer to it. Likely, like we said, you're gonna meet with that contractor. But ask the question, who is doing this construction if we have to go with your guy? Okay, so it's Tom and Jerry's Construction Co. What I would do is see if you can, if you know anybody in the construction field that is in your area, in the same area that works with these guys. Likely it is that they've worked on a job together. So you could ask the person that you know that's a contractor, if they've worked with this person or this company, and how does it work? How do they normally do it? What do you think of it? Okay, now so you've done that, or let's say you can't find anybody that's got that answer. What was that noise? There's a ghost. So let's say
the Grubhub tablet.
So let's say you can't find anybody that does have this answer. What I would do is call the local code enforcement. Whoever takes care of code enforcement in your jurisdiction, city, town, county, and they're going to be able to tell you pretty well whether or not this contractor, if they had any issue with the contractor. Now they're not going to
rat them out.
Yeah, they're not going to be awful because they don't want to be responsible for this person losing work. unless they really have an issue with them, in which case they're gonna rat them out. And that's when you want to listen. If the code enforcement guy really doesn't like Tom and Jerry's construction services, listen to him, because there's something going on. There's a mouse in the woodpile. What else we got for research? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the main things. I mean, doing the normal research of trying to figure out, who's around in this population, what their income is, what their education is, that all matters, and that's part of the business plan. We're talking about the leasing end of the research. Researching this plaza, figuring out, I would pay attention to as well, what other businesses have been in the spot you're looking for if it's not a new construction,
Right.
and why aren't they there anymore? So, I mean, the obvious reason that you're gonna go with is they didn't do well, right? They're not a good business.
Yeah.
But if they, you can't make that case if it was like a Chipotle or something that was doing really well, but it does well historically. So then you have to try and piece together what happened. Like, was it poor management, or was it the location was the issue?
Honestly, nobody knows more about the location you're in than other business owners in the location.
Mm-hmm. That's still going to be, I think, the reigning thing, and even why we're doing this is networking with other business owners is going to give you way more info than you know. And even if you are pretty seasoned in it, you already know, still learning things, learning tricks that other businesses are doing in other areas is going to be huge.
All right. Next mistake, negotiating. Not doing enough of it. Everything is negotiable. Do not settle.
Sam here.
My big issue.
She is so happy. Just like, maybe you came in and you were selling, what's like a common snake oil salesman. She is a buyer. And not only that, for like an awful price. Like, she does not, there's no negotiating.
The people pleasing. You're not here to please people. You're here to make your business successful and do the best thing for your business. So don't settle for things that you aren't happy with.
I think one thing to remember, I came up in sales, so I'm aware of it. And it's something that's always kind of in the back of my brain that, am I being sold right now? I'm trying to think about. But everybody pretty much, especially once you go into business, you're going to run into so many salespeople. I used to be one of them that was trying to sell businesses. Everybody is a great salesperson that's trying to sell you something, and most of it is garbage. Some of it's great, some of it you need, but it's hard to weed it all out. But something to always remember is these people aren't really your friends. They're not there to really help you. They're here to sell you. A good salesperson is there to help you too, and that's what they're selling, is that helpfulness. But keep in mind that it's negotiable, that they're not your friend. They're here to take your money away. So negotiate, especially with the landlords and the landlords team and the realtors. We got lucky negotiating. Now, so how did we get lucky? Do you remember?
They got the square footage wrong, so we ended up getting a better price per square footage than we initially planned.
Which we never would have asked for.
Never would have thought about, ever.
We just would have assumed, what's funny is, so we thought this space was 2,200 square feet, and it's 3,200 square feet. It was a misprint in all the drawings, and it's something I'm surprised we didn't catch it ourselves. Yeah. We said, okay, we'll take this space at exactly what you're asking for. Yeah. And they said, we'll do some landlord work for you to make it worth it. And we're like, that's awesome. We didn't know that you would do that. That's what a deal. Turns out, it was another 1,000 square feet bigger than what we thought it was. Mm-hmm. With that extra 1,000 square feet, the price obviously went up 1,000 times per year what we thought it was. Yeah. But then the landlord immediately came back with, how about we lower the rent down to about what we thought we were going to pay for that space, 1,000 square feet less. Yeah. So, it's very negotiable. Make offers, tell them, just be honest with, I thought my budget was going to be X amount of dollars a month, and that's really where we want it to be. They might be willing to do it. Now, obviously, it's just like watching Pawn Stars. Rick's going to come in there and be like, well, it turns out the best I can do is shake your hand and give you a slap in the face. But maybe you'll get met somewhere in the middle where it does make sense.
Best case scenario, it works out. Worst case scenario, they say no. And
don't be afraid. First thing in negotiating and anything you're going to negotiate is never, don't fall in love with a space, and don't be afraid to walk away. And that comes down to everything you ever do. You're looking at cars, looking at houses. Don't fall in love. Be prepared to walk away. And if you're saying to yourself, I'm going to walk away from this deal, you're trying to prepare yourself for that mindset, and it comes to it, you have to walk away. And it's just a good way to get into that mindset.
It was definitely my biggest issue at the start. Every time I saw a space, I was like, this is it. This is going to be the one. Not, this is it.
Because you dug your feet in about the mall. I wanted to, well, I wasn't strict by it because I had that mindset where no space was like.
I was strictly no on that
But
one.
she was no on the mall, which I was open to the mall. I'm glad we didn't put it there. But
Yeah. Yeah, but basically they're trying to sell you, do not settle.
yeah, don't stop negotiating. I mean,
Also,
ask for more. Just ask for more. See if there's anything extra.
get it in writing. Everything you negotiate, every price, every number, get it in writing. Because if you don't, again, let the landlord work, it won't happen.
Next thing would be the budgeting. So this comes down to understanding those terms, or at least you don't really need to know exactly what the triple net and double net, the camp fees, and what everything covered. I mean, you do need to know what everything covers, but you need to know exactly how much you're going to make a check out to the landlord every month. And then if there's going to be anything extra at the end of the year or different times in the month, it's the utilities. Is there going to be a heating bill at the end or a electric? Like, what's included in my rent? Do I have to pay anything outside of that? And they're going to tell you. So, I mean, obviously we have to pay for our internet, our electricity, our heat. Would there be, like, you just need to ask that question, is there going to be a snowplow fee? And you need to scan through, they're going to give you the lease to sign. You need to go through every line of it. Hire a lawyer if you can afford it, if you can. If not, just you need to read it and read it and read it and read it and then read it again. Highlight it, circle things that you don't understand, and don't be embarrassed for not understanding things. That's probably you probably noticed that with me. When I sit down with someone that knows more about a thing with me, I will straight up, the line I use every time is, so let's pretend I'm an idiot. Explain this. And it works because now you know. Now they're gonna explain it to you like you're someone that doesn't know because you don't know. And you're gonna find out, and it makes them have a chuckle, but then they also take the time to actually teach you what it is that's going on.
Another thing that I just thought about on the landlord work too is make sure you know what they're covering for repairs. Like ours covers the HVAC system and all that, but other things that get broken, we have to fix. So that's another thing in the budget too. If things get broken, who's in charge? Who's paying for it?
Right.
Make sure you keep in mind that if this breaks or if this happens, you have the money for it.
So we had was it one of your family members that owned the restaurant where the plumbing wasn't covered, like the restrooms?
Yes, so they had to pay to get a new toilet or something like that. Make sure you know what's covered.
Yeah, so I mean, you gotta know, when does your responsibility stop and theirs start?
Right.
But yeah, so with the budget though, so the biggest probably, I can't imagine having another bigger expense in your rental of the space. But yeah, your first expense is gonna be rent, probably, and taking care of that rent, and making sure you understand exactly how much they expect from you each month. It's gonna be huge, and then what else is expected, throughout the year. I would ask the question too of if they have any idea what it's going to cost to heat, cool, keep the lights on with the utility. If they have any idea, they're probably gonna lie to you. I will say, the one guy was very honest. Like, he's not I'm not his biggest fan, but he was very honest. He said about X amount of dollars a month, and it has been. It's been a little bit lower a couple months, but right on dodge.
The thing with budgeting too is something that we follow is keep an emergency fund. Because again, things happen. You can predict slower months, things get broken, things that you have to fix, things that you're not prepared for. Keep an emergency fund so you're not drowning.
So the way we have funded our emergency fund is we try to save up 1 month's rent, and that was the first thing we did when we looked back. We gotta make sure the bills are paid, and that everything that make sure we have goes to saving up 1 month's rent. So we have sitting in our account 1 month's rent just ready to go for when we have an issue. So I mean it's something we have had to get into it once or twice, but it wasn't. Well, it is stressful because you're getting into it because something's went wrong or something you have to take care of, something you have to fix. It's not as stressful because the money's sitting there yet. It's there to be used in emergency. That's pretty good. One thing we wanted to do was go over the questions to ask and the questions we didn't ask. We've already touched on this quite a bit, but the questions to ask that we wish or could have asked, go for it.
What's the fixed rent? Is there a CAM fee, triple, double, single net, total monthly payment? What's included? What are you going to charge for? Stuff like that, just so you know your budget and what you should be prepared for month to month.
So if you're going to take away anything from this, it's these questions that you should ask when you meet
Yes.
with whoever it is you're meeting with. So what's the fixed rent? The fixed rent should be that dollar per square foot times by the total number of square feet gives you your fixed rent. So that number is never going to change. Your space isn't going to magically grow. The CAM fees obviously can change. This is a bad year for CAM fees. You know, gas is more expensive, so running a lawnmower and landscaping fees are more. I'm sure our CAM fee is going to go up in the next year or two. The triple, double, net, single net, the taxes, the taxes, the insurance, all that stuff. You need to know what those numbers are and what to expect. All right, so we're going over the questions to ask. Landlord work, and sorry for these weird interruptions and these weird things. The camera only stays on for so long before it shuts down. I need to see, I'm sure there's a setting in there, I just don't know what the setting is, and I will learn. Just like the rest of this business, we learn as we go. But all right, so asking these questions, these are the main questions. We already went over monthly rent, how much you gotta give these people to operate a business in this spot. Landlord work, are they offering a budget? Are they they're gonna do certain jobs? Who's gonna do the work? They're doing certain jobs. If they aren't doing certain jobs and they're giving you a budget, who can you hire, or do you have to use their people? Who are their people? Find out if they're good or not, and make sure you know this information. And just because they don't come as the most highly reviewed doesn't mean that you should back out. It just means that before you sign over the space, do some research. Check in on what it is that they did. If you're not the most handy person out there, hire your own contractor. If you have to do a ton of electrical work to make your space work, call up an electrician. Say, hey, I just wouldn't mind if you walk through this space with me. Tell me if this stuff looks right, and just have somebody come check it out with you. Yeah. What's the next question to ask? So these are questions to ask the person you're renting from.
What is included? Well, that kind of goes with the next one too. What is not included? Utilities, again.
Well, like you said though, that's huge with the what is included. I mean, these two come together a lot.
Yeah.
What is included? Snowplow. If you live in the Northeast or anywhere that gets snow, are they clearing the snow for you for free? Are they clearing the snow on the sidewalk too, the space in front of your business? We get lucky, and they do clear that, but we couldn't get out there with a shovel.
We did make a makeshift shovel out of a piece of wood this winter, so.
Will they send police to watch for people drag racing in our parking lot while we're trying to record a podcast? These are things you need to know, people. Yeah, so what's included, what's not included? Ask that question, what's not included? What is it, like, I would ask you just like that, hey, if you were running a business in here, what's not included that I need? And I mean, they're gonna probably say some dumb things like, well, we're not gonna include your marketing. Well, yeah, but what about a sign? Can you do pylon signs, is that included? What type of sign, is there any rules on what type of signs we can put up? There are. For us, we had to get a very specific.
That did bite us in the butt.
It wasn't crazy. We knew it was coming because we knew about that from the get-go. But we knew we had to get the channel set letters on a raceway sign, and it's not cheap.
They're expensive.
Yeah, that's basically a month's rent. I swear, like, really, guy? Just racing up and down the parking lot?
I'm gonna go racing in that Mitsubishi Mirage.
Yeah, we should go race this, yeah. I think you might not hear it in this podcast because I should be able to noise cancel out. But there's somebody in like a souped up muscle car just like hauling up and down the plaza. It's like, what, 11 p.m.?
It is 12.
That's almost midnight and this guy's just racing around on the plaza. So, I mean, are they going to have overnight security? Are they going to be looking into things like that? Questions to ask. Alright, what do we got next on the slides?
Good salespeople make you feel like you're their friend. The landlord, his realtor, his property manager are all salespeople. They're not your friend. Don't trust them. It's a little something we're going to hit on the next podcast too. Salespeople and mistakes when you first open a business.
Yeah. So in our next one, I'm sure if I was somehow, I could link like a video thing right here, but I don't know how to do that. But that's on our next podcast. We wanted to go over mistakes that we made and mistakes to avoid, and just it's really more of a coverall of just these are the things we really messed up on. But this one, I mean, the focus was really on the
Commercial leasing.
commercial leasing in general. So,
Sam's take. All right. So
what's your thoughts on what's your, when we're just talking about commercial leasing? What do you
my big no-nos and things that happened that shouldn't have happened. Compare prices, compare different spaces, talk to different realtors, ask around. We visited a few places, talked to a few realtors before we even signed this place.
Because we looked physically looked at 2 spaces that we thought were a good fit, and we were pretty set on these are the space. This is where we want to put it. This area, this is what's available.
Yes.
Which I think we could have changed that.
Right. I think too, patience. Do not rush it. There's time. It took you this long to start a business. It can take you a couple more months to pick the right spot for it, to make it last.
Nobody's in a rush for you. I mean, nobody should, other than the contractors working on the space, which hopefully they're not rushing too much, so they're doing bad work. But yeah, you don't need to rush it as much as you're feeling this pressure to get it going, get it started. And it's probably because you're a goal-oriented person that's trying to accomplish this goal.
Right.
But you still should slow down and make sure you're making good decisions with it. And with the space selection and with the space improvements and the space modifications, you want to make sure you're taking the time to catch things you might have missed, because we definitely missed some things.
Yeah. I mean, this is your business is a representation of yourself. You want it to look nice. You want it to please. Stuff like that. And another thing with commercial leasing, I know you just signed the lease and you're just starting your business and it feels like everything is being thrown at you and everything is new, but plan ahead. So in the lease, there's going to be an option for an extension, how long the lease is. Most landlords will try to convince you into a 10-year lease, unless you're really confident with your business and drag racing in the business.
I can't believe this fucking guy. It's like he's just going back and forth in that plaza.
Don't sign a 10-year lease unless you're really confident.
You have to be really confident.
Yes.
And only way I would sign a 10-year lease is if it was the second location of the business I already have. Only way. And even then, I wouldn't do it.
I would do, at the moment, we have a 5 years, optional 5 years. You do 5 years, optional 2.5 years. However you want to do it.
The option on the end doesn't matter at all.
Right.
It's that first term. Because you can have a 2-year with an optional 20 years. It doesn't matter.
Another thing too, check how much the rent might increase throughout your lease.
Yeah, that's one thing I do really like about our lease is it does have, it's very cut and dry. That our next 5 years are going to be X amount of dollars. The 5 years after that, so the landlord does have an increase of rents happening every 5 years. It's very clear. We know that if we want to stay here for 20 years with the drag racing outside, that it's going to be. This is actually a really nice plaza that doesn't see it just because it's empty and everybody thinks that they can pull this stuff off right now. But anyways, so you want to know, it's a question to ask, something to find out if it's not included in your lease. It's like, hey, so I only want to do a 5-year lease, or normal lease is 3 to 5 years for a commercial lease. But whatever X amount of years you do, what's it going to be the next years? Because if the business is doing well, which I hope it is for you, then you're going to probably want to extend, and you're going to want to know what those numbers are before you just start thinking about extending. And if you don't want to extend in that same location, you got to go down the road again.
Yeah. Another thing too, check how long your landlord needs before you let them know that they're going to extend, that you're going to extend. So for us, we have to let them know a year before our lease expires. Don't get caught that if you want to expire and it's too late, the landlord already has the space given to another person, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you won't, you're gonna want to know what that time frame is.
Yeah.
All right. For me, thinking about commercial leasing, my main things would be, don't get stuck into thinking that anybody else in the process other than you and your team, or the people that work right for you or with you, in our case, don't get caught thinking that they care. Nobody gives I can't swear on this, but nobody cares about your feelings, about what you want. People are looking out for themselves and their business, their own business of self-interest. Right. Throughout this process, you're going to be working with a ton of other businesses. contractor has his own business, likely. The landlord has a business of renting out spaces.
Management team.
What's that?
Management team.
Yeah, the team that's likely they're gonna have a realty management group that's managing all this. So it's just gonna be a lot of businesses you're working with, and they're all doing the same thing that you're trying to do, trying to make money with their business. They're likely just as passionate about the business as you are, hopefully, but they're out there trying to make their business work, just like you need to be working on making your business work. Leasing a space, I mean, it's a scary thing. It's something that you're not going to want to don't want to do any half measures with it. You want to make sure you understand everything that's going on, and if you don't, slow down and ask the questions. Like, you really need to take a pause and find out the answers to these questions, and don't be afraid to pump the brakes or to look like an idiot. Like, don't be scared to ask that stupid question that's like, they're talking about triple net. What the hell is a triple net? They're talking about recam. They're talking about these terms that you might not know. Make sure you find out what they are. Now, some of you got MBAs out there that are probably gonna watch this and be like, look at these idiots. But I mean, we all have people in our lives that have degrees out the wazoo and MBAs, but we don't, and we have a successful business. So I mean, I don't really care about your degrees, but you're gonna have to learn this stuff if you don't have those degrees. And maybe asking somebody that does have those things, the MBAs and all that stuff, to explain and sit down with you. I mean, don't be afraid to ask for help, especially from other business owners. And like, I think a lot of us are really passionate about what we do, and even not just the business that we're in, but running a business, that we're willing to help out others.
Well, the thing that I would suggest too is get a lawyer or somebody, to read the lease. We got screwed over on that. We talked to the management team and our realtors.
Yeah.
A big issue we had at the start.
It was just it was pure confusion on our part, just not knowing better, and the way that things were worded.
Right.
So
we double checked, triple checked, quadruple checked
3 times,
multiple times with different people, our realtors, saying, "Hey, this part of the lease says that we get our first 3 months are free."
3 months of free.
We're like, "Is that correct? That seems a little weird. Just wanted to make sure that that's true." Everybody said, "Yes, that's great." We signed the lease. The landlord asked, "Where's our rent?"
Yeah.
And we were like, "I'm sorry, what?"
So the way it was written was 90 days of consecutive, rent free.
Right.
But that was 90 days from the rent commencement agreement. It's a very confusing thing. But so basically, we did have some free rent, but it was
the month we already paid.
The first month's rent that we already paid, and it was free, 3 months of free rent, unless we hadn't opened yet.
Yes.
So that was the thing. We could have gotten more free rent, but we would have had to not put the open sign out. So it was 3 months of free rent to improve the space for us to come in and work and do all the stuff that we needed to do. Now, they didn't say that. Like, nobody said that.
Yeah.
And it didn't even say that really in the lease. It just was explained to us that we might have gotten robbed. Who knows? Which, I mean, it all worked out fine because we got lucky setting up a business that people want to go to. But something else, I wanted to mention on too is you're going to see in any of these videos, I'm sure I watched a million of them before we actually rented this place. But they're all going to talk about location, and what does that even mean? They're going to be talking about foot traffic and car traffic and the different traffic and whether or not this spot's good or that spot's good. It's important. It doesn't have any. It's not like we can say it doesn't have an impact. Well, so we're an axe throwing place. Let's look at the ones around us. We won't say their names, but we'll use the street names or something. I'll use businesses close by them, so we know what we're talking about. Target, behind Target. Yeah. Really out of the way, weird spot, very successful. Has a huge crowd that goes there, very dedicated following. Kohl's, awful parking lot, no room at all.
Yeah.
Huge following, tons of support.
Okay.
Downtown.
No parking.
No parking at all. Just walk up street. Got to park in the parking garage. Great location as far as they get tons of people coming through on the Friday, Saturday night, you know, near bars and everything. The games one, I don't know what else to describe it. Don't know too much about them, but quirky, unique like us. Parking's got to be similar. Doesn't have much of a thing. What I'm saying is some businesses, and if you have a product that's good enough, it's not going to matter if you don't have the perfect spot. Try and get the perfect spot. Get every leg up you can. But look at the best restaurants. Think of some of those best restaurants you've been to.
Holes in the walls.
Yeah, the hole in the walls ones that are packed because they have the best thing. So if you can do it something the best, don't get caught with this analysis of, well, this place might be a little bit better, that place might be a little bit better. Well, we are saying to take your time and make sure you find a spot that fits your needs. What we're also saying is blaming everything on the location just means that you're selling crap. I mean, all right, if we could do it again, this was going to be the last segment of this podcast. If we could do it again, what would you do different?
Do more research, be patient, look around, ask questions.
Sam really dug her feet in on this spot.
Yeah.
Which I don't hate it. I still at the time of it, I was like, I don't know if it's the best one. But same thing as what we were just saying, that analysis paralysis. Yeah. I was extremely confident that we could put this anywhere in the area that wasn't a complete whole, awful place, and we would be okay. But I think that we've seen a few more spots and everything. I think we could have picked a couple better spots. But in the grand scheme of things, I think we're talking about maybe a couple $100 a month at most that we would have picked up, if that. And even if we did, it's not like it's much. It's not like the people that the only thing that's different is those customers out where I kind of wish we put it now, are just, they're finding out about us a little bit later.
They're still coming.
Yeah, but they're still showing up, and that's the key. I think biggest thing you can do with your location is put something really amazing that beats out your competitors in that location.
Be better.
Yeah, you have to have a better product, a better service, whatever it is that you're doing in that location. You have to have passion, and you have to make sure that you have a way of making sure that your customers like it. Make sure that what you're doing fills the needs of that customer and fills them better.
Another thing too, mistakes will happen. It won't be the end of the world.
Well, I mean, the obvious things would have done different. Get it in writing.
Yeah.
Find out more about the landlord work. Ask more questions.
Yeah.
Make sure you have somebody that knows what they're talking about on your team.
Yeah.
And don't just assume because you should know this that you do know this.
We still don't.
All right. Well, I think that's it. You got anything else to go over?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for watching the Exhausted Podcast, Episode 2, How to Rent a Commercial Space. We hope to see you again next time.
Beginner mistakes.
Once we're going over the beginner mistakes. I think one that's in the pipeline. I think that's the right saying. One that's in the pipeline is I think we're going to be going over being a couple in business. Definitely being together in business has its own thing. So that's something to look forward to too. But thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time or whatever, because we don't see you, you see us. I look forward to you seeing me.
That sounds creepy.
Yep.